Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Popsy Guy. It's just about 11 o'clock, and if you know anything about me, you know I am obnoxiously punctual. So I want to welcome you to our second live chat, and this is Real Retirement Talk with Popsy Guy. I want to make sure that we cover a couple of things. Let me check this out. Let's see. Some of the things that I wanted to talk about today and get your thoughts on are the real issue about being a caregiver, especially in that sandwich generation that I had mentioned in my last video. And if you haven't had a chance to check that out, I think that would be good. It's a good discussion about what happens when you are actually in that middle generation, right? I called it the filling of the ice cream sandwich. You're the middle if you're a caregiver to your aging parent who's on the top, or your growing children who are on the bottom. And it's a dynamic that there's no playbook for it. There's really nothing that you can look at and say, oh, this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. It's just something that occurs. And I'm going to share with you something that I did some research on that was pretty eye-opening. 70 rule, and we'll get into that. But I just welcome you and say hello. And if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. And let's see. I'll blow the chat up a little bit so I can see. So one of the things, first of all, if you're new to the channel, let me share with you, I just kind of talked about it. I'm not an advisor anymore. I was for many decades. I was a certified financial planner, held my chartered financial consultant designation, ran my own financial planning and investment advisory firm for a number of years. But I'm not licensed anymore. I'm retired, living on the beach. And so the things that we talk about aren't necessarily advice to you, but they're subjects that a lot of us are thinking about, right? And when I say a lot of us, I'm 64, so that puts me at the very late boomer stage, and the Gen X. I can never get the generations right. But I want to talk to people in their mid to late 40s all the way through retirement, because those are the issues that I specialized in when I was an advisor. So with that being said, the comments that I got in that video kind of surprised me in a good way, because it resonated with some people. They were talking about how, I made a comment about how the impact of caring for aging parents in your own home, what that has, the impact that has on the kids who are actually in the house. And I used my own personal experience, which was living with two teenagers, obviously with my wife, but inviting my dad, into our house to live with us when he was 81 years old. At the time, I was 48. So the dynamic is that even though I was in the business and I was an advisor, I wasn't taking my own recommendations. I just thought it was the right thing to do at that time, because there wasn't a real big support system. He lived 1,000 miles away. He was up in the Boston area. I was down in South Florida, and it was just, we communicated every week. We'd chat every week, and I'd ask him how he's doing. He'd say, "Oh, I'm fine. Don't worry about me." And then he'd relay a story to me about how he lost. This is one. Oh, I'll tell you, if you do my dad, he was an Irishman from Boston. He was not going to be deterred. But anyway, he told me how he locked himself out of the house during a snowstorm in his underwear, because he went out to start the car to get it warmed up, because at the time he was still working. It was early in the morning. Snow was still flying. He had to get to pick up a client and bring them to the airport. So he went out in the morning to start his car. The door closed behind him and it locked. He did not have a house key on his house ring, on his key ring. He's telling me this story. And I said, "Oh my God, what did you do?" He says, "Well, I had to go around the side of my house, jimmy open a window, stand on the air conditioning unit, and try to get through the window." it's things like that where you're like, no, you need to come down and live with us in salt water. Oh boy. Hey, good morning, thriving Algonquin. It's good to see you again. Yeah, taking care of aging parents is becoming more and more of a reality for folks. And it's good that you have. And I'm speaking with thriving Algonquin. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put that right over there, put that up like that, make it even bigger. So don't need to keep taking my glasses off because I know it upset one of our guys, one of our chat members last week. Much better. Yeah, and so having it's good that you mentioned that, Thrive. D. Thank you for reminding me in our last chat with Phil. I'll call you D. Having a support system is really important because without that, you're left to make decisions on your own for someone else, and you're not 100% sure that those are the right decisions. So having support, having family members nearby, and having the ability to bounce ideas off of them about care for your parent, I think is a really good thing. What I've also noticed is that sometimes there's diverging opinions. One sibling, and I've seen this in my own practice as an advisor. Um, when I say divergent opinions, it means that I'm not going to do it that way. This is the best thing for dad or mom. And because I know them better than you live 200 miles away, you never see them. You get into those conversations. Just a few minutes ago, I mentioned the 40-70 rule, something that I've researched. And I think it's probably a good parameter or a good idea to keep this rule in mind. And it says that when you, as the adult child, are getting close to age 40, or your aging parent is getting close or is at age 70, that's the time to have a conversation because, that's a generation, right? 30 years. At 40, most of us, we're probably raising a family of our own. We were trying to figure out how to do that because if you're a parent, you've never actually brought your child home from the hospital with a manual that says, hey, this is how you do it. No, you learned on the fly. And what you'll find, and what I've found, is that it's the same thing with caring for an aging parent. So you've got that sandwich generation, right? You're at your point where you're trying to raise your own kids, probably early teens. I shared the story of how old my kids were. They were 16 and 18 at the time when my dad came to live with us. But nobody emailed me a book, or I didn't go out to the mailbox and pick out a manual that says, here's how you take care of your dad while you're raising your kids. And then I mentioned in the video, my wife and I were both self-employed, so we're trying to build our own businesses. So we had a lot going on, but there was nowhere I could turn that says, this is how you do it. And I think it's hard, right? And if you're in a situation where you have, tried to do this, D says, yeah, I have two strong-willed sisters, but we all listen to each other's input. And that's good. You listen to their input, but if they're strong-willed, coming from a family of strong-willed people, it becomes kind of a wrestling match. It's hard. And D, you've been through it. You're going through it, maybe. And you mentioned that your daughters are established in their careers, so the focus is on the grandkids. Thank you for that transition. We didn't, we didn't talk about this, but that's where we're at, right? Both my parents are gone and my wife's parents are gone. So the focus is on the grandkids. We'll have that conversation some other day. As a matter of fact, I did talk about it not that long ago about how sometimes the finances of a household with kids out of the house, it's just the husband and wife or just a single person, the finances can get a little screwed up because of the grandkids. Just saying it out loud. Sometimes we're like, oh, we need to send them some money, or oh, we need to buy them some things that they don't necessarily need, but that's what we want to do. So we'll shelve that conversation for another day. I wanted to focus on talking about being in that sandwich generation. And if you have any actual experiences that you want to share, that'd be awesome. I think it's a topic that a lot of people are not talking about until it happens, right? So what I want to also talk about this morning and get your thoughts on is the impact on your own retirement planning or your own retirement plan when you are in that situation. So if somebody is in that sandwich generation where they have kids they're raising at home and they're taking care of an aging parent, whether that parent is living with them or not, there's going to be a financial impact. What I wanted to talk about and get your thoughts on is what does that mean for your retirement plan? Right? If you're working full time, um, then you know what? You're going to have to take days off. And if you are not able to take days off with pay, paid time off, then you're going to have to give for free. And I know there's legislation and it's been talked about for years. I just don't think that it's gotten anywhere in the tax code to provide for some credit or income for family caregivers. And not to make this a political statement, but I know that in one state in the middle of our country that begins with an M and ends with an A, there's a whole community of people who have fraudulently said that they are caregivers to receive money. And so, yeah, there are systems set up state by state. But if somebody's taking advantage of that system, who's to say that that system won't be, dismantled because of the fraud, which would be a complete shame. And yeah, Dee says that it did impact her retirement. She is a New Yorker by blood, but apparently living in Kentucky. And let's see, all my plans were put on hold. I actually went back to work for 3 years just to help my parents after the tornado. Oh, yes. Yes, I followed that. Mayville? What was the name of the town again? I follow a guy on YouTube called Ryan Hall, y'all, and he covered that tornado. This is, 4 years ago, I'm guessing? Dawson Springs. But yeah, that's, you got to do what you got to do. That's hard. Yeah. Do you know, did you, yeah, it was December 2021. Okay. Dee, did you live in New York and then relocate to Kentucky to take care of your parents? Or if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that, because those are two completely different cultures, two completely different makeup. Whether you lived on the island in Manhattan or if you lived upstate, it's not like Kentucky. Those are completely different. They're just different. And if you get a chance, you want to chime in, that'd be awesome. But doing these live streams, thank you, Dee, for being so chatty. I absolutely appreciate it. She says she relocated from New York to Texas for work and then retired to Michigan. Oh, man, you've been around. I mean, that almost rivals what my wife and I have been doing over the last, 2026? 20 years. The number of moves we've made. So, yeah. And it sounds like you're probably settled in Michigan. We're settled in, no. Oh boy. All right, stop. She says, not counting living in Europe. Wow. Someday I'm just going to have to find out more and more about your travel plans. But I also want to talk to you offline, maybe, about your experience with SSA, because as you well know, that is a very, very confusing topic for a lot of people. And especially on my channel, I've done a number of videos about Social Security, but I'm not an expert. I had to learn everything while I was an advisor. And every situation was different. Every single person that came in wanted to know one answer. When should I take Social Security? And my retort to that, or my response to that, sounds a little crass, but I would say I can answer that question with certainty. You only one question. And the person would look at me and say, well, what's the question? I would say, tell me when you're going to die. And you know what? It took the pressure off the conversation, because then I would back into talking about how Social Security retirement benefits are a single life annuity. They end when that person's life ends. The longer you live, the more money you get. The earlier you take it, the less money you get per month. So it's a balancing act. And if somebody knew because of their family health history that they had a long life ahead of them, then I would probably say, let's take a look at receiving benefits later and doing as much as you can to save in the meantime. But if they looked at their family health history, mom, dads, brothers, and sisters, and they didn't really make it very far, take the money now. Matter of fact, I did a video on that. I titled it, Take the Money Now. So, yeah, I think your experience with SSA is invaluable. Um, I really do. I really do. And so I'll have to tap you at some point for that information. But getting back to the topic of actually what happens to somebody's retirement plan, it could derail it. It absolutely could derail it. And here's the situation I think everybody already understands is that when you are caring for the younger, whether they're teenagers, younger, or even adults that are, your adult children that's still living at home, and you're taking care of an aging parent, that's tension, right? That's pulling from both sides. And being in the middle forces you to make decisions. How can you divide all of that support that's needed equally and still take care of yourself? So I'm a fan of saying that you need to take care of yourself first. If you are bringing a aging parent into your home, that's a huge support system. And I'll share with you the situation I had with my dad. Is he didn't have any retirement plans. He didn't have any money in the bank. He had Social Security, and he wanted to give us that money to help us out. And I said to him, "No, that's your money." But I was also not buying his groceries, right? Um, I didn't need to do that, but I had to continue to do it for my kids, right? For our kids. So, having that conversation, and this is why I think the 40-70 rule that I had mentioned earlier actually is a good rule when you think about it, is to have that conversation up front. And if you're in your 40s and your parents are in their 70s and your parents are still physically able to take care of themselves and mentally they're pretty sharp, it's okay to take them out for a cup of coffee or lunch and say, "Hey, this is a weird conversation being your kid. Let's talk about this." And if that was done in most cases, I think the next thing that's on my to-do list to talk about is the relationships. Because the relationships between um, that adult child and the parent, and the relationship between the parent and the child that's still living at home, and then if they're married, that relationship, every one of those relationships gets strained. Let's not kid each other. It has to be that way because of the stress. We're not designed to, well, maybe I should back off and say maybe we were, because it wasn't that long ago, not that many generations ago, where it was expected that you would bring an aging parent into your home, or they may even lived with you for years beforehand. That's not the same. That's gone. That concept doesn't exist anymore in this country. I don't know anything about Europe and other countries that may still be the social model, but I can tell you in the United States, it's not. So it becomes awkward, right? We've all been raised to get out of the house at age 18 and live on our own, and that's wonderful. But what happens if you get out of the house at age 18, get married, have kids, and then you have to bring your parents back in the house, and then all of a sudden one of your adult children isn't really finding their way in the world, and they come back in, right? It's a tough situation, and most people are not really prepared for it. That's just the reality. They're not financially prepared for it. They're not mentally prepared for it. I started this talking about relationships. The relationships get strained because nobody's talking about the elephant in the room, right? And I'm speaking from experience because that was something that impacted the relationships I had with my dad, I had with my wife, and I had with my kids. But I thought I had it all together. I thought I know exactly what I'm doing. This is not that hard. It really isn't that. It is hard. Let's just let's just leave it that way. Um, he says I saw what my mom went through trying to help take care of my grandmother and with dementia, and all the extended family members had different ideas, and it ruined relationships. So so D throws in an interesting twist into the conversation, which is caring for somebody with dementia. Um, I saw my dad starting to slip later in life. I'm not a doctor. Nobody diagnosed him with early onset or any type of dementia. But you could just see it. It was, the inability to make decisions or make bad decisions. In my dad's case, God bless him, he wasn't a big fan of cleaning the dishes in the sink. He just didn't like to do it. Um, so we would do it. We didn't ask him to do it. So his I don't know how I got on this topic, but his thing was, well, just give me a paper plate. I don't need to clean dishes. I'll just eat off a paper plate. And he would use the same coffee mug, and that was the way he wanted to do it because he did not want to be a burden to us. But if you had dementia or some other type of organic brain disease, I'll call it, all the social skills that this person grew up with and just until recently possessed, they go out the window, and there you are trying to figure it out. That's hard. Again, strain the relationship, right? Um, I'm sorry to hear you say, D, that it ruined relationships because one of the things that I'm passionate about is my faith, and I know that everything that's happening to us on this planet right now, we are just, if you're a Christian and you have the same belief structure as I do, a biblical worldview, that this is all just temporary, right? We're just passing through this world right now. So after the death of a loved one, um, the time to mend relationships is before that happens. And I know that's easier said than done. And I also have seen, and I've said this in my own situation, that when we go to the wake or funeral of a loved one who passed away, and I grew up in the Catholic Church 1,000 years ago, and in the Catholic Church, the tradition, you may be familiar with this, is a wake with the open casket for a couple of days, then the burial, then the funeral mass, then the burial. So the wake with the open casket that's what you did, unless there was some reason not to have an open casket. And people would go to the casket, kneel in front of it, and pray. More often than not, if they were very close to that person, they would be in torment, in tears, in some cases, inconsolable. And I always found that very odd. And then as I grew in my own faith, I realized that the reason that people are acting that way was because of the things that were not said and the opportunity they had to say them, right? There was an opportunity to patch up a relationship or to ask or give forgiveness that didn't take place because their loved one passed away. So to me, that's where the heart-wrenching sorrow is while we've got people in our lives right now, um, we should be able to make amends, not have ruined relationships, forgive, because at some point, all of us are just not going to be here anymore. And if you believe, like I do, in an eternal state, then if you are a believer and that loved one is a believer, celebrate because you're going to see each other again. um, Man, how did I get on that topic? Anyway, let's kind of circle back to where we're supposed to be. Um, it's kind of a cold topic, but it is, that's what we do in this channel is we talk about financial retirement and financial talk. And so, that's one of the reasons I wanted to just communicate with you all is, and if you, I'll plug it again, if you haven't had a chance to see my latest video, I think it's worth a view and then worth a comment and maybe build a community of commenters in the comment If you have any suggestions how to promote, because I know you're working with Phil, and Phil does an amazing job with his lives. He seems to get a pretty decent turnout. If you offline have any recommendations for this channel, how to do that, this is only my second live. I'm planning to do them on a Friday on a continual basis. And the idea is to use the topic that the video of the week is and just do this, having a conversation and about what's important to you, and, getting that opportunity to talk to people about these things, because I think Dee already knows this, is you are not alone in this, right? When you are caring for, whether it's younger or older generation in the same household, other people are going through it, right? And you need to lean on them. And that's why we do this. This is a community. Let's see here. I know Phil's not here, so he's not going to give me a hard time. The other thing I wanted to really kind of discuss is how we can, as I already shared with you how old I am, how we can make the best of the time that we have between now and when God calls us home. And, I keep using, thank you. He's busy. He's busy at Home Depot, keeping everybody busy. We're talking about Phil. What's Up Boomer is his channel. And if you're watching this after the fact, which my sense is you are, then check out Phil's channel. It's called What's Up Boomer. He's got some great, and he's got a great story himself. And I want to use him because he's not here, so I can talk about him behind his back. He's the perfect example of somebody who has been given a second chance in life, right? He's very open with his heart event, as he calls it. And it was a number of years ago that he had the widowmaker heart attack. And if you know anything about that, the survival rate is next to nothing. But here he is. I think he's going to be, how old's Phil going to be? 68? See? And, he started and stopped his YouTube channel as best I can remember at least two times. And he's 68. But this third time, he's killing it. And the simple fact is, the reason that Phil is doing well is because he is open and honest about his situation. He's 68. He's working full time at Home Depot. Mainly, he gets the benefits and so forth. But he likes to, socialize. He's a social cat. He likes to do those things. And he also wants to, earn some extra money so that he can go see the grandkids and granddaughters. But one day, his heart is already, and I've talked to him offline about this, and he gets it. But one day, that heart that's already been impacted by that widowmaker is just not continue to work. So we all have to be cognizant of that, right? And the impact that we make on other people's lives really means a lot. And I've used the term, and I talk to my own kids about this, is what I call the ripple effect. And to me, the ripple effect is simple. When you impact somebody's life positively, it has a ripple effect. They may not realize it at that time, but they may take your positive impact and carry it to somebody else. And then it's like the old Prel. No, what shampoo commercial was, I told two friends, they told two friends. That's the ripple effect. So what I'm saying is, while we're here and we've got our, physical health and we've got our mental health, let's try to make positive impacts. And it could be as simple as just, and I do this, when you go to the grocery store, the Publix, the Walmart, the Aldi, what have you, if you're actually interacting with other people and not just using the checkout, the self-checkout, they always say 100% of the time, how are you? And I'm like, I'm fantastic. And I just say it like that, and they stop. They go, really? Yeah. I don't have to say anything else. They'll usually say, well, that's good, and then continue their work. But I know for a fact that most of the people that go through their line in the checkout counter are like, no, I'm good. How are you doing? And that's it. And that's the end of the conversation. So just to bring a little bit of positivity and energy to somebody's life that you don't know and you may never ever see again, I'm convinced has an impact on that person. And they may say, you know what, I'm going to do that. And then that'll continue the impact. So that's my philosophy on making an impact in life. I just think it's something that we, as we get older, don't really think about all that much. We just assume that, we're going to be here forever. You know. This Dee makes another comment. She says that's the one thing we were always taught at the SSA, which is the Social Security Administration. Always acknowledge people, no matter what their position in the agency or with the public. I love that. I didn't realize that. Because this, you've worked in that area of government before. People, and I'm not saying this to you, Dee, so don't take it personal. People have an opinion of the Social Security Administration like they do of the DMV or the IRS. It's like, I got to get through this, right? And so if you've been trained, and I bet you do this in your everyday interactions with people anyway, to have a positive impact, acknowledge people, look them in the eye, smile, right? Man, do I sound like an old guy. And it comes from the fact that I work part-time delivering pizza, and I am at least, I'm at least 30 years older than the oldest person in that building. There are 3 high school kids. There are a couple of people in their mid-20s. One of the managers is my age, I should say. And we look at each other like these kids don't get it, because they don't. And I'm not blaming them. It's just, I look at what happened just in the short time I've walked this earth, how I was raised to look people in the eye, firm handshake, smile, and just do what the Social Security Administration trained you. Just acknowledge people, right? I don't see that. And again, I sound like a boomer, like, get off my lawn, kid. I don't want to be like that, and I'm not like that. But it just breaks my heart when I see younger people, and I'm talking people, maybe 35 and younger, who just won't look you in the eye, don't know how to do a handshake, don't know how to smile. And I feel like saying, come on, dude, you're 35 years old. You're not even at the halfway mark. And you've got this sour puss on your face. All right. How did we get here, Dee? I have no idea. But, I just wanted to get that off my chest. Don't tell anybody. Dee says she loves positivity. That was, that's why you're still here. Thank you. And I know you're trying to get Phil to sign on, but he just is, no, you're not derailing me. Trust me. I'm thankful to have the interaction, because doing lives, you can ask Phil. He's done dozens of them. This is only my second one. The fear going into it is nobody's going to show up, and I'm talking to an empty room. But what he did, and there's another school community that I'm involved in, Mike Bear, his old Mike living better, old me living better. They both told me, it doesn't matter. Just do it. Because what will end up happening is this episode will be posted on YouTube as a YouTube video that people may watch. So, thank you very much for the interaction. I just know that this is one additional way for me to help build community. So, Dee, just because you and I are on the same page here, let me run this idea by you. Don't tell anybody. Okay, it's just between me and you. So just recently, I have revamped my whole website. Very happy with the way it came out. And I've got a content strategy that flows something like this. Do a video on a topic about real retirement talk. That's the name of the channel. So I have topics in the bucket ready to go. And I've also created checklists. I'll give you an example. My next one's going to be on long-term care insurance, right? It kind of dovetails into what we're talking about with caring for aging parents. Having been in that business as an advisor, I have some very good experience and some very interesting take on whether or not people should even investigate it. I'm going to do a video on that. I've created a worksheet, which is something that people can download and use if they are investigating buying long-term care insurance. And then deliver a newsletter right after that to subscribers. And if you're watching this, please go to my website, which is popsyguide.com, and subscribe to my newsletter, because what that will do for you, it will give you an idea of what that week's content was, a download to that worksheet for that content, and then to follow it up with lives. So that's the workflow process I have, and I wanted to get your thought on it. You said long-term care is a great topic. I agree. Is Wednesday video, Thursday newsletter, Friday live. I don't know. Tell me what you think. I mean, I'm just starting it, and you well know this is only my second live. So if I go off topic, it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, and I've got other topics already in the can. I haven't done the videos, but I've already created the worksheets. And again, it's all based on my experience as being an advisor and having these conversations with people. We'll talk about Social Security timing. We'll talk about purchasing car insurance. That is something I think people are just confused with, right? And I'm talking about the Gen X, late baby boomer generation. It's like, bundle and save. And I've got my own thoughts on that whole industry itself. Thank you very much. You've been watching the videos and you really enjoy them. I appreciate that. Feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, is excellent for a YouTuber. Sometimes we post, we wait, we hear nothing. We wonder if we ever should do it again. But I'm convinced that this is what I'm doing in my second half of life. And I've built 2 small businesses in the past, a financial planning business and a recruiting business. And this is basically my 3rd one. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think long-term care, Medicare is a completely separate one. So to answer your question, yes, I'll have a standalone video on long-term care, and then I'll have a standalone one on Medicare. It'll take a little bit more research for me because I don't have any experience selling it or talking to people about it. Because as an advisor, if people came to me and they were in their mid to late 60s, they already had it. So I understand parts A and B. I understand Medigap insurance. I understand Part D. I get the whole picture. But now, in a few months from now, I'm going to have to make a decision on my own Medicare plan. So I'm planning on this Medicare video, maybe even being a series in a few months as I navigate through all the options and ask the questions. Because I think, there's statistically 10,000 people a day turning 65 is what I've been hearing for 30 years. Well, I'm one of them, right? Next year, turning 65. So as I cover the journey of learning about my options in Medicare, I may just document it and do a series on that. I don't know. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely. Yeah, I saw, D says, I saw a video that talked about how Medicare covers some long-term care situations. Let me kind of stop you right there because it does not cover any long-term care situations. It's not designed to take care of long-term care. There are skilled nursing facilities where after you're, discharged from a hospital, admitted to a skilled nursing facility for rehab, that Medicare will pick up some of that cost, but only up to 100 days. So they'll pay the full cost for the first 20 days and then a portion of the cost for the next 80 days. And that's it. Now you're considered if you're still in that facility and it doesn't have a long-term care component to it, you're out. Medicare is not going to cover it. And if you don't have the money and you don't have the insurance, guess who pays the bill? It's either you, your kids, or if you've got nothing and you apply for government assistance in the Medicaid program. So yeah, that's where my experience is. But thank you for, you're starting to really impact me on the next series. Anyway, yeah, I think those are all good conversations. And, just to let the cat out of the bag with long-term care insurance, it was back in the late 80s, early 90s that I was heavily involved in creating for a very large insurance company in Boston standalone long-term care sales agencies. And the reason is because probably in the early 90s, 91, 92, that was all the rage. People were talking about long-term care insurance because it was being marketed through retirement plans at work and individual plans by companies like American Express. American Express was one of the leaders in selling individual long-term care insurance way back when, way back in the early 90s. And they were just going like gangbusters, selling policies like they couldn't keep them on the shelf. The underwriting stunk because there was no experience, but they were selling and collecting premiums. And if you know anything about the insurance business, that's why insurance is so profitable, because the companies collect the premiums and they only pay out when there's a claim. So there was no claim history to rely on to base the premiums. The premiums were based industry-wide on who can sell the most policies. So it became a premium war. And companies like, Bobby Joe's Screen Door and Insurance Company would open up and offer long-term care insurance because everybody's buying it. I can sell that. And guess what happened? The experience of long-term care claims started to come in, and they were horrendous. These companies were like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't know we'd have to pay that much. So over the decade of the mid to late 90s and more so in the early 2000s, companies started getting out of the individual long-term care business and putting all their focus on group health insurance through work. You can sign up for long-term care. Not a lot of companies did it, but a lot of insurance companies were pushing it. So here we are, many years later, 20 plus years later, in an industry that's kind of lost its way. Dee says, I remember Social Security purchasing long-term care, but it was expensive, so I never got it. Just looking into what options like people like me have now. Well, that'll be the whole conversation that we'll have on that video. Now is the best time. I don't know how old you are, Dee, and you don't have to share anything with me. But because we live in the age of AI, you will get a lot of good information before you have to actually pick up the phone and talk to a insurance agent. And I am cynical. I don't like insurance. I just don't like insurance companies. I think they're in the business to not pay claims, right? It's a good business if you can do it. But insurance people who are 100% commissioned, they're not acting in your best interest because they can't. They're brokers. And a broker versus an agent, a broker brings a client, an insurance agent, an insurance company together after doing a lot of due diligence on the different options. And this is what you'll find in Medicare is Medicare brokers and Medicare agents. The brokers go out to the industry and find the best deal for what you're looking for. Agents work for a company, right? So if I'm an agent of XYZ insurance company, I'm going to sell XYZ insurance. I may have the option to sell other insurance companies, very limited in the pool of companies I can select from. But if I'm an agent of a company, I'm going to sell that company's policy because my compensation is going to be higher. I may get some benefits for, towards my retirement or what have you. Defined benefit plans are gone, but I may get some deferred compensation. Anyway, all I'm sharing with you is use AI now to ask good questions. And before you pick up the phone or listen to one of these silly ass commercials on TV, or do not pick up the phone and do not respond to an email. And the email could be something like, hey, are you interested in long-term care insurance? For free, we'll send you this guide. And all of a sudden you put your email in there and it's required that you're going to have to put a phone number in there. As soon as you do that, gone. Your phone is going to ring before you even after you hit send, your phone is going to ring. I guarantee it. And it's health insurance. You just mentioned you have a government health insurance. I'm not going to give that up. Yeah, I don't want you to give that up. You work too hard for that. My brother is retired military, and he's TRICARE. He's asking me about Medicare. And I'm like, I don't know how Medicare and TRICARE work together, but I would assume Medicare would be your secondary insurance and TRICARE would be your primaries. Don't give up TRICARE, I told him. So anyway, I am going into too many specifics. Thank you. You're looking forward to the video. But all of these discussions that you and I are having, and anybody else who sees this after the fact, we live in a wonderful but uh, double-edged, double-edged sided sword. It cuts both ways because all the information we ever need is right here on our fingertips, right? We pick up our phone. Let's see, what am I looking for? We go to our laptop. All that information is there, right? And this is why I started the business in YouTube. I'll get to that in a second. Is that's all information, right? What do you do with all that information? And between health insurance, long-term care insurance, life insurance, car insurance, home insurance, retirement planning, all of the fine points of finance, you can get answers through AI. The advice is different. And this is why I'm passionate about people who are looking to retire and looking for advice, and people who are retired and maybe want to find an advisor. I've created what's called an advisor suitability audit, having been in the business a long time. And this is not selling anything. I'm just saying to you that most people, it kind of blows my mind that most people spend more time planning a vacation than they do looking for a good professional financial advisor. So I've created a tool that helps people either find the right advisor. I'm not telling them who to go to. I'm not making any recommendations. My Advisor Truth Kit, which is free to download off the website and off my channel, is a way for people to interview advisors. And it's very, very good because it puts you in the driver's seat. And then my recommendation is always interview 2 or 3 advisors, and then order an advisor suitability audit where I'll print for you. My tool prints a detailed report on the advisor, their background, their credentials, what their business model is, what they charge, everything that you're supposed to know. But as I said, it's just information. What do you do with it? The tool that I've created summarizes all the information to give you an executive summary. It grades them, doesn't grade them. It gives them, I've designed a green light, yellow light, red light system. And then I give you my opinion based on the facts, and then let you decide. And that's the whole idea behind this. The company that I'm building is that I want people to be equipped, educated, so that they can make good financial decisions. And that just drives right back into the conversation about insurance. More often than not, we buy insurance because the insurance company has a good ad and we laugh at it. And then, yeah, it's cheaper. I can save 15% in 15 minutes. Or, the other ones, we get hooked on a company because we like their ads. So we call them up or we go online and we buy from them. Is that the right decision? I don't know. Where do you think all that money's coming from to make those commercials? So those are the types of things that I want people to pay attention to. Is if you're not actually researching, just making decisions that sound good at the moment, it could cost you down the line. Anyway, going, but that's okay. That's. I'm going to check the time. What do we got? 11:49. I wanted to keep this kind of brief. You know what, Dee, thank you so much. If you want, you can. How should we do this? You can type an email to me. I don't know how to do that. Can we do something offline? Anyway, here's my email. Um, it's popsyguy at gmail.com. Send me an email and maybe we can connect and, pick your brain on Social Security and so forth. And as this channel kind of grows, because I know you're a moderator for Phil and you do an awesome job. You've got that wrench, keep people in line, which is hard with Phil. We can talk offline. So I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I think the conversation was good. It helped me kind of digest some of the things that I'm thinking about. So until next time, we're going to do this every Friday, God willing. So I'll put a notice out and learn more from you and Phil how to promote these so more people are actually on them. So thanks, kiddo. Bye-bye.